Discover the incredible wedding gift that transformed a forced marriage at 19 and shocked the entire town of Springfield. Emma trembled as she traced her fingers over the antique locket, its intricate design a stark contrast to the mundane life she led in her small Midwestern hometown. This was no ordinary trinket. It belonged to her late grandmother, a woman whom Emma had admired for her strength and spirit. Growing up, she'd heard whispers of her grandmother's youthful defiance, the stories skimming past like dreams in her mind. But now, at 19, standing on the precipice of a loveless, arranged marriage, she felt only the weight of expectations pressing down on her. Her dreams of becoming a doctor had dimmed under the bright lights of tradition and the suffocating grip of loyalty to her family. Each day felt like an echo of the last, a repetitive cycle of obligation and duty. She was to be a good wife, surrendering her heart to the whims of a man she barely knew, and yet it gnawed at her. What cost would it take to tether her aspirations to her family's ideals? Desperate to breathe, Emma absorbed herself in the contents of the box before her. Each letter, each photograph whispered tales of resilience that stirred something deep within her. Courage. The locket was heavy in her palm, a physical reminder that her family's legacy was not of submission, but of strength. Courage lies within, the hidden message echoed in her mind, igniting a spark. Could she find her voice like her grandmother had? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. With each letter Emma read, her admiration swelled. The struggles of the women before her, their sacrifices, the shadows they fought against, it was all too familiar and yet felt so far from her own life. Her husband, while capable and dutiful, had never acknowledged her ambitions. Did he even understand the weight of his indifference? As the clouds rolled in and rain began to patter against the window, Emma's heart raced. The fight for her dreams felt like an uphill battle, and doubt clawed at her thoughts. What would happen to her family if she chose differently? Would her defiance shatter the fragile web of love they had woven? The voices of neighbors echoed in her mind, sneering comments about a woman who dared to stand against tradition. Would she become a pariah to them all? Anxiety spiraled as she stood at the brink of her decision, seeping into her veins with each shallow breath. The night deepened, the weight of her reality a suffocating cloak. Was love duty, or could she redefine its meaning? As thunder rumbled outside, she felt as if the storm reflected her turmoil, a tempest brewing inside. If she dared to step away from the life laid out before her, what would become of her? Emma clutched the locket tighter, the truth trembling just behind her grasp. Could courage truly be the salvation to reclaim her lost dreams? With a single flick of her finger, she opened her phone, scrolling through photos of white coats and stethoscopes, imagining herself in a lab, hands deep in the pursuit of saving lives. But a flicker of dread shot through her. There was a chance her bidding for freedom would fracture her marriage irreparably. The choice spun in her mind as she held the locket close. It was more than a simple heirloom. It was a reminder that the fight for her identity was only just beginning, and the tension tethered her to an uncertain fate that loomed closer by the second.
Emma's breath hitched as she weighed the locket in her palm, its cool surface grounding her to a reality that felt increasingly surreal. Each pulse in her chest aligned with the thunder, resonating with her escalating internal conflict. She was poised between two lives, one filled with the safety of family approval, and the other brimming with the possibility of pursuing her ambitions. The photo of her grandmother in a crisp white coat flashed across her mind. Could she create a legacy of her own, one that didn't bind her to a fate of silence? She thought of the late-night study sessions, her heart racing as she envisioned herself in medical school. The fire within her reignited as she considered the potential paths ahead, demanding recognition beyond the label of a dutiful wife. As the rain hammered against the window, it mirrored the rapid beating of her heart. She needed a plan, a way to assert her autonomy without alienating her family or damaging her marriage. But how could she express her desires when the very foundation of her life was built on compliance and family loyalty? Emotion surged through her as she recalled the letters, her grandmother's words of strength and bravery. If the stories she read were true, it was time to carve her own path. She couldn't live in the shadow of another's dreams while suffocating her own. What if she initiated the conversation with her husband, laying bare her ambitions? Could they find a compromise that fulfilled both her need for independence and his expectations of partnership? The thought of speaking up sent a jolt of panic through her, but deep down she knew it was a necessary risk. In that moment, as rain continued to cascade outside, Emma steadied herself. She could practice what she would say, crafting the dialogue in her mind. Each representation of her ambitions became a statement about her identity. It was her choice, her fight. She was not merely an accessory in someone else's story.
Emma unfolded another letter, devouring its contents. As she read the struggles laid bare before her, she committed a singular phrase to memory. The future is uncertain, but courage unearths possibilities. She envisioned her life a decade from now, a medical degree in hand, standing alongside her devoted husband as a partner, not merely a subordinate. This defined vision was worth the discomfort that change often demanded. Breathing deeply, she resolved to confront her fears, yet a nagging doubt crept in. What if her husband rejected her aspirations, reinforcing her fears of ensuing conflict? Would he regard her ambitions as an affront rather than a contribution? She needed more than hope. She required clarity. She took a moment to reflect, picturing herself in the lab she longed for, unrestricted and fully immersed in her calling. Even if it ultimately led to a fracture in their marriage, wasn't it better to know she had fought for her identity? Emma clenched the locket tighter, feeling the strength of her grandmother radiating through the antiquated metal. But before she could process the overwhelming thoughts, another surge of trepidation washed over her. What if this endeavor pushed him further away? What would happen when she had to defend her choice in front of family and friends? Emma sat in the stillness of her room, preparing for the confrontation that would determine not just the trajectory of her dreams, but the pulse of her very existence. Now she closed her eyes and in the echoing silence whispered a singular mantra of intent. I will not hide any more. But before she could summon the resolve to act, the door creaked open. Emma startled as her husband stepped inside, his expression unreadable. We need to talk, he said, closing the distance. The air thickened with tension, her heart pulsed wildly with anticipation. This was the moment where everything could change. As the door clicked shut behind him, Emma's stomach plunged. Was this the confrontation she had been preparing for, or an unexpected turn that could alter their fates forever? Emma held her breath, her chest tightening as the silence hung heavily in the room.
Her husband, Mark, appeared tense, his fingers tapping restlessly against the doorframe. The barrier between them felt frail. The weight of unexpressed emotions and dreams hung in the air like thunderclouds just before a storm. "Are you okay?" he asked, concern lacing his voice, but Emma detected an undertone of confusion. Did he have any inkling of the battles raging inside her? She wanted to reach for something reassuring, a gentle touch or comforting words, but the internal tempest held her captive, paralyzing her. "Yeah, I'm fine," she replied, her voice barely audible, feeling the unconvincing bravado seep through the cracks of her resolve. Mark stepped closer, searching her eyes for a deeper truth.
She could see that he wanted to understand, to connect, but she was terrified of what revealing herself would unleash. "I know something's been on your mind," he continued, his tone softening. "It's just different lately. You've been so distant." His words felt like barbed arrows, each one piercing deeper into her. They were true. She had been retreating into herself, grappling with the ambition that threatened to upend our world. It could tear down the very walls of familiarity they had built together, brick by brick, since they were teenagers. Emma's mind raced. Was this her moment? Could she finally unravel the tightly wound ball of fears and dreams? But the trembling uncertainty clung to her like a shadow, whispering doubts in her ear. She had rehearsed this moment in her mind countless times, yet words felt menacing. "Mark," she began, though her voice trembled, "I've been thinking a lot about my life and my dreams." He nodded, brow furrowing, yet, wait, hold on. Shouldn't she have a clearer plan? They had always forged choices together, interdependent and merged, a collaborative existence. But hadn't she neglected herself, allowing the collective to drown out her individual needs? "What do you mean?" he asked cautiously, needing clarity that she struggled to find. Emma inhaled sharply, feeling the needle prick of vulnerability. "I want to pursue my education, go to medical school." There, she had said it. Her dream soared into the open like a bird breaking free from a cage. The silence that followed was thunderous, amplifying her racing thoughts. Would he see the inherent light in her aspiration, or would it eclipse our shared path? She watched his expression, a mixture of disbelief and disappointment washing over him. "Emma, we've talked about our plans. You know that—" His voice faltered, the weight of realization dawning upon him. "You never seemed interested in that before." Heaviness wrapped around her heart like a chain. "I know. I buried those dreams because I thought that's what I should do. But I'm realizing it's my life too, and I want to make choices for myself." Her voice shook as the words poured out, but a new determination underpinned her fear. This was not merely about academics, it was about her identity. Her ambition was hers to wield, and she could not travel the road of expectation if it led to a dead end. Mark studied her, brow furrowing deeper still. He looked as if he were searching for a thread of their shared history to connect the contours of his feelings about what she had just revealed, but she sensed a disconnection echoing between them. "Emma," he pleaded softly, "I want you to be happy, but this will change everything." "Maybe that's the point," she countered, her voice now firm. "I can't lock away who I am to fulfill our past. I need to find my future." Mark's expression shifted, the realization that he could lose her conflicting with the thought of a shared life.
This was the true confrontation, the pivot that could redefine their entwined existence. As minutes dragged on, each second unfurling her vulnerability, Emma realized she stood on the precipice of transformation. Would they transition together, or would this revelation fracture the foundation of their bond? The unspoken words loomed darkly between them, an uncertainty that held the potential to reshape both their lives. Emma's heart raced, knowing the next step could unravel the fabric of their shared journey. "You think this is the right choice?" Mark's voice broke the tension, seeking her determination amidst his apprehension. With newfound courage surging through her, she uttered, "It's the only choice I can make." But what if this was merely the beginning of uncertainty, rather than liberation? As he stepped back, jaw clenched, their futures hung in the balance. Emma felt an unexpected resolve swell within her. She would stand for her aspirations, even against the storm between them. As she braced against the growing tension, she knew this conversation wouldn't end here. The next words could either build a bridge or sever their ties forever. Was she ready to embrace both possibilities? The time had come to face the consequences of her choice. Emma watched Mark's expression shift as the weight of her declaration settled over them like a thick fog. She noticed the muscles in his jaw tighten, and the silence that filled the room became heavier still, the kind of silence that could shatter glass. This was not the relaxed space where they had once shared simple dreams and light banter. It was now a battleground for hopes and fears, a crucible in which their lives could either meld into something new or fracture beyond repair. "Emma," he finally said, his voice barely above a whisper, "you've never mentioned this before. Why now?" His question struck her like a lightning bolt. Was she supposed to carry this burden of desire silently forever? "Because I'm tired of being defined by what others expect of me," she confessed, an almost frantic intensity igniting within her. "I want to be more than a wife. I've spent my whole life following what I thought was right, what we both agreed on, but it's becoming clearer each day that I've lost sight of who I am." As she spoke, Emma found an unfamiliar assertiveness rising within her, a voice that had been stifled under layers of self-doubt. She had allowed years to pass while pushing aside her ambitions for the sake of their shared life, but that chapter had closed. It was time to pen a new narrative, one that honored her journey and aspirations. Mark's expression softened as doubt washed over him, but she could see uncertainty sparking in his eyes. "I don't want to stand in your way," he said slowly, "but medical school means a significant commitment. We have bills and responsibilities. What about us?" His concerns were valid, but they felt suffocating now.
"I can't carry the weight of us at the expense of my own dreams anymore," she asserted. "I've made sacrifices, and starting today, I refuse to weigh my needs against theirs." Emma could feel the swell of her determination rising like a tide. She had always viewed love as a partnership, but now it felt as if she was drowning under the expectation of being solely a wife. That must change. Yet at the same time, the realization struck her that pursuing medical school wouldn't just involve workloads and night classes. It would also mean coming to terms with the new shape of her life and how it might impact her relationship with Mark. She had dreamed of stethoscopes and scrubs, of a career serving others, yet her dreams now stood starkly juxtaposed against the very intimacy they had once cherished. "Emma, we have to consider what this means for us as a team." His words carried an underlying urgency, as if he were grasping for the pieces of their shared life that seemed to slip away. "Mark," she said, her heart pulsing with both resolve and fear, "if we are to grow together, we cannot ignore our individual journeys. My education is essential to who I am. I need you to understand that." There was a moment of silence as Mark turned his gaze toward the wall, deep in thought. The tension twisted in Emma's stomach, a mixture of anxiety and adrenaline pushing her thoughts into overdrive.
She needed him to see the depth of her ambition, not as a source of division, but as a potential for a life richer than either had envisioned. "What if you dive into this and realize it's not for you?" he asked, a hint of vulnerability in his voice, stirring something in her. "What if I don't?" she shot back, the words escaping her lips before she could stop them. "What if I fly? What if I find a passion I never knew existed, and that passion actually benefits us?" Mark's concern was not unfounded, but it stung like salt on a fresh wound. She rose from the couch, moving to the window, letting the sunlight flood her face. It struck her how vital it was to embrace the unknown, to grasp at hope even when it felt impossible. In that moment, she understood that fear was not a signal to retreat, but a call to action. "I'm not asking for permission," she said, more to herself than to him. "I'm claiming what should have always belonged to me." Mark's silence echoed through the room, but it was different now. Rather than a barrier, it became a space for potential reconsideration, a pause as he absorbed her conviction. She felt exhilarated, yet still frightened by what lay ahead. "Emma," his tone softened, as if he were finally recognizing the seriousness of her desires. As she turned to face him once again, an image flickered in her mind. Herself in scrubs, a stethoscope around her neck, standing confidently before patients. It was a vision of possibility, and it filled her with a newfound zest for life.
"We need to talk about how to make this work," Mark said, his voice overcoming the tension in the room, a thread of hope interwoven in uncertainty. Emma's heart surged at the prospect of possibility. But beneath the surface, uncharted waters awaited. What sacrifices would come with independence? What would it take to truly reconcile their dreams, both shared and individual? The answers loomed just out of reach, shrouded in a fog of unfulfilled expectations and the weight of a shared future. Emma took a deep breath, readying herself for the difficult conversations ahead. She would need to confront not only their shared history, but also the stark realities of her ambition and its implications. And in that moment of uncertain clarity, she wondered, was she prepared to navigate the turbulence ahead for the sake of her dreams? The days that followed were a whirlwind of introspection for Emma. Each passing hour was spent grappling with her ambition and her identity. She began to sketch out her plans for enrolling in medical school, diving into research, yet every entry in her planner was interspersed with lingering thoughts of Mark. The tension between her goals and the weight of their life together felt palpable, wrapping around her like a vice. Instead of the joy that generally accompanied newfound aspirations, she found herself tethered by an invisible thread of guilt. Emma transformed their living room into a study space filled with medical textbooks she'd borrowed, but the distraction of their shared life loomed large. As she absorbed information on human anatomy and pharmacology, her mind often drifted back to Mark's hesitant expression. The reality was glaring. She had painted over their future with the colors of her own dreams without consulting the other half of their union. "Come on, Emma," she muttered to herself one evening, flipping through flashcards, yet her heart raced not from excitement, but trepidation. What if this was a grand notion, a fleeting whim? Each time she questioned her commitment to this new path, a flicker of self-doubt flickered through her consciousness, coiling in her stomach. The weekend arrived, and Emma decided to broach the subject with Mark again. They had struggled through a few conversations about her plans, but each discussion danced around the core issues. They knew they had to confront it properly, to articulate both their fears and aspirations. Maybe then they could understand the evolving nature of their relationship. "Hey, can we talk?" she asked, as they sat down for coffee. Mark looked up from his laptop, the shadows beneath his eyes revealing sleepless nights filled with contemplation. "I'm listening," he said,
placing the device aside. "I've been thinking about us, about how we can make my goals work without losing what we have." I fought to keep my voice steady, to combat the emotional flood threatening to spill over. "I need to understand what you truly want out of this, too."
Mark shifted uneasily, glancing down at his mug as if it contained the answers they both sought. "I want you to be happy, but you have to consider what that means for us." "I know we can support each other," she pressed, determination hardening her resolve. "I need your help. You've always believed in me, and I don't want that to stop now." His gaze flickered back to her, skepticism mingling with admiration. "I want to, Emma, but it's a huge commitment. What if it doesn't turn out how you hope? What if it creates a rift between us?" The weight of his worries pressed down, deeper than she expected. They had always been a duo, but the prospect of her independence felt like loose threads unraveling a carefully woven tapestry. "You don't have to shoulder those concerns alone," she replied, her heart aching for him. "Let's talk practicalities. How can we balance our responsibilities with this change?" He hesitated, brows furrowed in thought. "I could take on more work around the house, maybe even cut back on my own commitments. It might not be ideal, but I want to support you." Emma felt gratitude wash over her. This was a moment of potential reconciliation, a bridge between her burgeoning independence and their shared life. But even as hope bloomed, insecurities haunted her. "What if my passion consumes me?" She voiced the thought that wrapped around her heart like a serpent. "What if I lose sight of you while chasing my aspirations?" Mark sighed, removing his glasses and rubbing his temples. "We can set aside time for us, just like we used to. Date nights, trips. We need moments where it's just you and me, away from school and responsibilities." The idea offered a small relief. Emma nodded, a tentative smile breaking through the somberness. "I think we can make this work." "But it's going to take effort, Emma," Mark said, his gaze locking onto hers. "We both need to be committed, not just to our dreams, but to each other. I don't want to feel alone in this." "I understand," she pledged, a new depth of resolve filling her. "We'll tackle this together. No matter where the journey leads, I want us to face it side by side." Yet, despite the optimism, a wave of doubt washed over her. Navigating dual identities, dreamer and partner, would be a delicate balancing act. As they delved deeper into the logistics of her future, she questioned if they could truly emerge stronger. That night, as she lay in bed, Emma couldn't shake the sense that the biggest challenges were still ahead. Would her ambition and Mark's commitment prove to be a harmonious duet or a harmful discord? Each decision they faced stood as a potential defining moment in their relationship, and that thought held her in restless suspense. She drifted into an uneasy sleep, wondering how many more conversations it would take to meld their dreams into a reality that respected both their ambitions. The shadows in her mind spoke of uncertainty, leaving her to wonder. Was she truly ready to embrace the chaos of change? Or had she set a path that could unravel their very foundation? Morning light filtered through the curtains, stirring Emma awake with a jolt. The clarity of dawn brought a fresh resolve, but it also carried the weight of the conversation with Mark from the night before. She lay still, tracing the outlines of her dreams, aspirations, and responsibilities in her mind. Determined to start the day with purpose, she took a deep breath and mapped out her agenda. The study space awaited her, a testament to both her ambition and the sacrifices they were both preparing to make. Yet a nagging sense of hesitation hovered over her plans like a cloud. Responding to that uncertainty meant action, and today was the day for actionable steps. Emma decided to meet with a former professor, Dr. Anderson, who had always encouraged her to pursue a career in medicine. As she prepared for the meeting, her heart raced with anticipation and fear. Would Dr. Anderson see the duality of her aspirations? Would she recognize the tensions that had begun pulling on Emma's emotional cords? The coffee shop was bustling, the aroma of roasted beans wakening her senses. After a few minutes of fidgeting, she spotted Dr. Anderson entering. The woman's warm smile set her at ease, if only for a moment. "Emma, it's so good to see you," Dr. Anderson said, her voice a melodic combination of excitement and wisdom. "Thank you for meeting with me," Emma replied, settling into her seat. "I've been wrestling with the idea of applying to medical school, but I'm not sure how to navigate it all." Dr. Anderson leaned in, her expression shifting to one of genuine concern. "What's holding you back?" Emma hesitated, the tide of her insecurities threatening to overwhelm her. She spoke of her ambitions and the discussions with Mark, the fears they both shared. "I don't want to lose sight of what we have, but I feel this pull toward medicine that I can't ignore." "This is a profound realization," Dr. Anderson responded, nodding appreciatively. "You need to evaluate what you can give to yourself and what you're willing to ask of your relationship." "What if I'm not enough?" Emma's voice wavered, betraying her internal struggle. "What if chasing this dream costs me the love I care about the most?" "Ambition is often viewed as selfish, but it's not necessarily a betrayal," Dr. Anderson reassured her. "Understanding our own passions allows us to define where we fit in our relationships. It's discovering who you are first that enables a true partnership." The notion struck a chord, echoing in Emma's mind as they continued talking. As the conversation shifted to practical steps, applications, financial considerations, and potential timelines, Emma felt empowerment creeping in. Each piece of advice helped forge a clearer path, one that didn't exclude Mark but included his support within it. Returning home, Emma felt renewed, buoyed by the day's discussions. She was ready to make her ambitions known again, more clearly defined this time. "Mark," she started that evening, facing him with a newfound determination, "I want to revisit our plans. I think I understand now how to prioritize both my goals and our relationship." He looked at her, a mix of amusement and curiosity peeking in his expression. "What did you come up with?" "I need to be transparent about this journey. It's not just about me going off to school, it's about us growing together. I spoke with Dr. Anderson and mapped out a timeline." Each word carved away at the anxiety that had settled deep within her. "But what's the catch?" Mark's tone remained skeptical, a shadow of concern on his face. "No catch, just the acknowledgement that we need to communicate constantly, and maybe allow new routines to develop, all while keeping our connection strong." Mark's brows furrowed, his natural reserve still flickering like an ember. "How do we keep that connection while you dive into such a heavy commitment?" Emma hovered on the brink of fear and certainty. "We build check-ins into our schedules, date nights, even times where I take a break from studying just to unwind together. Small but significant moments, enough to remind us why we chose each other." Mark exhaled slowly, his gaze steady on hers. "I just want to know that this isn't going to take you further away from me." "I promise you it's not," she replied, feeling the suffocating grip of doubt loosening. "I truly want this. Together we can make it work." As she spoke, Emma realized that the path ahead was strewn with negotiations and obstacles, but they didn't need to overshadow her ambitions or her relationship. Something profound was shifting within her, the realization that pursuing her dreams didn't inhibit their shared life, but rather expanded it, like the horizon on a clear day. Yet as they concluded their conversation, a grim thought nagged at the edges of her mind. Would she truly be able to balance both aspirations without fracture? The answer remained elusive, foreshadowing an inevitable confrontation with the realities of commitment and sacrifice. That night, unable to shake the feeling of impending tension, Emma lay awake, wondering if her ambition would be the light guiding her forward or a shadow lurking in the depths. A blend of fear and hope tightened within her, leaving her with one pressing question: was she prepared to embrace the dualities that would dictate the journey ahead? The following morning, the weight of her thoughts pressed against Emma as she stared at the array of textbooks stacked on her desk. Each title glared at her, reminding her of the impending journey she was preparing to embark on. The morning light, usually a source of comfort, now felt more like an interrogation spotlight. Could she truly manage the sacrifice needed to pursue her aspirations without losing Mark in the shuffle? Fueled by a blend of anxiety and determination, she plunged back into her studies, but the focus she had cultivated the day before waned amidst self-doubt. Thoughts of Mark filled her mind, intertwining with her ambition. Would he still see her as the person he loved, a partner destined to grow together, or merely as someone who was choosing her dreams over their life together? Emma meticulously organized her notes, but each line became an echo of her uncertainty. To combat the creeping fear of inadequacy, she drafted a list of her priorities: medical school, time with Mark, and self-care. The need to define these elements gave her a semblance of control, yet the undercurrent of fear reminded her that plans often changed unexpectedly. With determination born from the remnants of her conversation with Dr. Anderson, she set a boundary between her studies and personal life. Each evening was precious, an opportunity to cultivate her relationship with Mark. She envisioned a future where her late-night studying would blend seamlessly with an occasional dinner date, laughter woven into their busy lives. As the days passed, Emma made incremental strides in her preparations. She finalized her application, attended informational sessions, and studied for the entrance exam, each task marking a progression, each moment a step away from the frightened girl who once questioned her worth. Yet in her concurrent efforts, a familiar tension surfaced between her ambition and her relationship. Mark's support, which had initially buoyed her spirit, now felt tinged with the bittersweet flavor of fear and uncertainty. There were nights when his laughter faded into silence, moments when his gaze lingered too long on the space between them, as if weighing the significance of their shared dreams against the burden of her ambitions. One particular evening, as she prepared to plow through another intensive study session, Mark approached her with an unusual look. "I need to talk to you," he said, his tone stern yet somber. Emma felt the familiar squeeze of apprehension knit its way through her gut. "Sure, what's on your mind?" she asked, voice steady despite the turmoil brewing within her. "You've been so focused on preparing for school that I feel like I've been losing you. I want to support you, but I need to know where we stand," he confessed, vulnerability echoing in his words. The pause they shared thickened the air. The weight of their conversation hung over the two of them, extending the tension until it hummed. Emma met his gaze, searching for answers as she felt a stark realization settle in her chest. Could they weather this storm of uncertainty together? "I want to include you in this, Mark," she began, wanting to extend an olive branch amid their growing disconnect. "But what does that really mean? How can we remain us if you're so consumed by your goals?" His voice cracked, revealing the depth of his own fear. A sudden clarity surged within Emma.
The truth was there, shimmering beneath the fear, the idea that their solidarity was not only possible, but essential. "It means we choose to communicate and set aside moments solely for us. I need you to help guide this process, and in doing so, we can strengthen what we have together." Mark's expression softened, but remained cautious. There remained a shadow of doubt in his eyes. "And what if it doesn't work out? What if you become so involved in your studies that we drift apart?" The question lingered in the air, testing the very fabric of her aspirations against the reality of their relationship. If she didn't wholly embrace both her dreams and the love they shared, what would be left? Emma leaned closer, her determination reignited. Then we reevaluate. We can't foresee the future, but I believe we can create it together. We will figure this out, I promise. As she spoke, a flicker of hope ignited within her, with a commitment to both her goals and their relationship shaping the contours of their shared journey. Yet, as the exhaustion washed over her and the night's quiet settled, she couldn't shake the unsettling feeling. Was it enough to promise? With questions unanswered and her future looming, Emma sensed that a critical moment was approaching. Would her ambition and love collide, or could they coalesce into something transformative? The choice lay before her, vast and precarious, leaving her teetering on the edge of anticipation. In the silence that enveloped her, one undeniable truth whispered through the walls of her heart. The moment of choice was arriving, and she could no longer avoid it. Emma's heart raced as she rose the next morning, her resolve tempered by the weight of yesterday's conversation. Still, she had made a promise to Mark, a commitment forged between the need for ambition and the depth of their connection. She took a breath, grounding herself, and mentally prepared for the day ahead. Sitting at her desk, Emma opened her books but found herself distracted. The words danced but failed to settle. She could hear the soft murmur of Mark in the kitchen preparing breakfast, followed by the familiar clinks of utensils. That sound, once comforting, now echoed the tightening of her own schedule and priorities. Would sharing morning meals soon be an afterthought amid her studies? Determined to turn her intentions into action, she resolved that after her test preparations, she would carve out the first of their dedicated evenings. She envisioned them clinking glasses over dinner, a much-needed release from the heaviness that enveloped her. Planning her time was becoming critical. If she was going to integrate Mark into her journey, every moment would have to count. Hours slipped by, and soon Emma was immersed in test material, attempting to outpace her anxiety through force of will.
She discovered a rhythm in the structure of her study sessions and started recognizing her unique style, efficiency mixed with her desire for mastery. Her notes transformed into a colorful tapestry of highlights and annotations that breathed energy into her learning process. But then came moments of stark reflection, and an inner voice would rise, carrying doubts that could not be ignored. Could she remain the partner Mark deserved while harnessing her ambition? Could she truly merge her aspirations with their relationship, or would her path pull them apart, unraveling the shared goals they once held dear? Later that week, Emma attended a study group, seeking both camaraderie and the advantage of discussing complex topics out loud. The atmosphere buzzed with intellect and ambition, a refreshing contrast to her solitary struggles. Yet as they debated a challenging case, a realization struck her. She was drawn to this collaborative environment, invigorated by the discussions, and found herself hungry to expand her knowledge. As she contributed her thoughts, a spark ignited, a deep-seated competency she had never fully appreciated. Emma had always been a synthesizer of ideas, seeing connections where others saw gaps. This ability could serve her not only academically, but in her future career as a physician. The realization danced in her mind like a cork bobbing on water, effortlessly rising with every wave. However, gratitude battled against anxiety. In a world where focus was critical, she needed to protect this newfound confidence. Retaining balance between her drive for knowledge and nurturing her love for Mark would require vigilance. Their conversations had already felt slightly forced. She needed to ensure those moments of connection did not dwindle.
When she returned home, the familiar warmth of the living room enveloped her. There was Mark, engrossed in a new streaming series, laughter spilling from him like light. Emma hesitated, feeling an electric pull between that moment of joy and the anxiety still lurking in her mind. "I missed you at dinner," Mark remarked lightly, but there was an undercurrent of discontent. "I thought we agreed on making time." Emma felt the rush of guilt wash over her. "I was caught up with the group discussing potential test themes," she explained, but the sheepishness echoed judgment. "You excel when working with others, I get that," he replied, his voice steady. "But can I not be part of those conversations? I want to encourage you, but I also need to be seen by you." His words struck a chord deep inside her, making Emma question the balance of her priorities with renewed intensity. She felt the exhilarating pulse of possibility, but also the unmistakable tremor of fear. Could her ambition coexist with her relationship without diminishing one to serve the other? That night they sat silently, fabric stretched thin between them. As the moment lingered, Emma felt the gravity of her choice pressing down.
Was it time to confront the multitude of feelings bubbling under the surface? With decision brewing within her, she glanced at Mark. Stirring within her was the realization that she could no longer tread water when it came to their future and her own dreams. Determined to move forward, she knew an honest conversation beckoned. "Can we talk about how to make this work?" Emma proposed cautiously, her heart brimming with uncertainty yet fortified by resolve. The air around them vibrated with tension, and as she awaited his response, she felt the weight of the impending decision settle in her stomach. Would they face the uncertainty together, or would this moment expose the fissures they had both tried to ignore? As the silence stretched on, Emma realized the path ahead was fraught with challenges, but equally ripe with possibilities. And yet the doubt whispered again. Was this truly the moment they would reshape their future, or had she unwittingly thrown a formidable challenge into their fragile partnership? Emma's breath caught as Mark turned to her, his expression shifting from surprise to something she couldn't quite define. The moment hung heavy between them, a fragile thread that could snap with a single wrong word. Just as she opened her mouth to suggest they tackle her studies first, he leaned in, his relief palpable. "Yeah, let's talk," he said softly, yet the tension in his voice made it clear the conversation would demand a level of honesty they hadn't engaged in before. Emma felt adrenaline surge through her. The stakes were higher than ever. "I need to understand what you want from this relationship. Your dedication is inspiring, truly, but I can't shake the feeling that you're pulling away. If I'm just a placeholder while you chase your dreams, I need to know." Those few words ignited a storm of emotion within her. She had been so focused on her academic goals that she had neglected the value of their bond. Yes, ambition was vital, but at what cost to their relationship? "I don't want you to feel like a placeholder," her voice trembling. "You're not. You're a part of this. I'm trying to figure out how to be both a dedicated student and a good partner. It feels like a juggling act, and I'm terrified of dropping everything." As she spoke, clarity washed over her. That realization that it was a juggling act made her heart race, but not with dread. Rather, it invigorated her. It was a dance she could learn, a dynamic flow she could master. "I want to embrace this challenge together," she asserted, her conviction growing. "We haven't sufficiently communicated how to support each other in this phase of our lives. I need the person I love by my side, not at a distance. I want us to grow together." Mark's expression shifted from concern to something resembling admiration. "I want that too. How do we make sure we're covering both our bases?" Your success is important, but so is our relationship. I just need to feel included in your journey, not sidelined by it." The words hung between them, and Emma felt the weight of his sincerity. While there was no simple answer, they were at least beginning to coalesce around a shared vision. Maybe we can schedule regular check-ins, even if it's just a half hour every few days, she suggested, emboldened by the conversation's warmth. That way we make time for both my studies and our relationship. Absolutely, Mark nodded, his smile breaking the tension that had built. Let's commit to being each other's support system, and we'll navigate this together as partners. I want to see you succeed, and I want to be alongside you as that happens. The agreement hung in the air like a new beginning. Emma breathed deeply, a sense of relief flooding her veins. But just beyond this moment of connection bubbled a new layer of concern. Could she truly sustain both her burgeoning academic ambitions and the intimacy of her relationship? As days went by filled with studies and those newfound relationship check-ins, she felt the rhythm growing more fluid. Yet a relentless question nagged at her. Was this collaborative approach sustainable, or would the pressure of her academic demands eventually suffocate it? One late night, after an intense study session, Emma stumbled upon an old journal of hers from high school, filled with aspirations and dreams that had since shifted and transformed. Reading it sparked a drive within her, igniting a yearning not only to succeed in school, but to rediscover the Emma who once executed her ambitions with unyielding belief. The next check-in with Mark approached, and Emma knew it was time to confront this duality head-on. Would she declare her aspirations for both herself and their relationship clearly, or would fears over what she might need to sacrifice leave her tongue-tied? As she glanced back at the flickering pages of her youthful dreams, she felt the undercurrent of anticipation surge within her. This moment might very well demand more than a compassionate conversation. It would require an undeniable commitment to confront the convergence of her relationship and newfound ambitions. "Mark," she whispered to herself in quiet determination, "it's time to show you and myself exactly who I think I can become." With her heart racing and a renewed sense of determination, Emma stepped into the familiar warmth of their living room, ready for her scheduled check-in with Mark. The past few weeks had been a roller coaster of emotions, and today felt different, clearer. She had embraced intentional communication, wrestling with her dual goals, and increasingly believed she could integrate her ambition with their relationship. "Hey, you!" Mark greeted her with a bright smile, his eyes lighting up as she entered. The ambiance felt relaxed, but tension still lurked just beneath the surface. The unknown awaited them both.
"Hi, can we sit?" Emma gestured towards their couch, fighting the nervous flutter in her stomach as they settled in. She knew this conversation could shape the next phase of their lives, a delicate pivot towards reconciliation and collaboration. "Absolutely," he replied, his expression inviting yet earnest. "First, I just want to thank you for being supportive in the transition," she began, feeling momentum build within her. "Your willingness to participate in my journey has meant the world to me, but I know I haven't always been present, and I want to change that." Acknowledgement softened the tensions between them. Mark nodded, the earnestness of his approval affirming her choice to be vulnerable. "I appreciate you saying that, Emma. I just want to ensure we don't lose us in all of this," he replied gently. That reassurance settled her nerves, solidifying her resolve. "Mark, I want to make shared plans, establish a routine that balances both my studies and our connection. I can't keep placing one on hold for the other," she continued, feeling empowered. His gaze held steady, awareness whispering behind his eyes. "That's a great direction. What do you have in mind?" "I've been reflecting on my goals, and they're more than about succeeding in school. I want them to translate into a life that enhances both our experiences. We can prioritize study time, of course, but I want evenings to be dedicated to us. Date nights, shared dinners, or even quiet time reading together. Anything just to connect. That way we can serve both who I aspire to be and who we are together." The sincerity in her voice hung palpably in the air, each word ringing with determination. Mark's expression shifted from apprehension to understanding as he leaned in, absorbing her intentions. "That sounds like a good plan," he said, his enthusiasm palpable. "I've missed those moments. The spontaneity we had isn't something I want to lose." As Emma continued to outline their framework, a weekly check-in regarding her schedule and their shared time, she felt the weight on her chest lift as hope flickered into possibility. They would be partners navigating this journey, not adversaries. "But Emma," Mark interjected, "what if this leads to a sacrifice in terms of my own time? I want to support you fully, but I don't want to lose my own path in the process." Hearing his vulnerability stirred something deep within her. "Your ambitions matter too," she said passionately, her eyes alive. "Let's not see this as mere sacrifice, but as an opportunity to hold each other accountable, challenge each other to grow. We can inspire one another." "That's the spirit. I want to stay engaged with you while you pursue your dreams," he replied, pride painting his features. "We can create systems to ensure you're still keyed in to a fulfilling partnership." With every word, Emma's confidence soared.
They were forging a path where both ambitions and shared love could coexist, an inevitable dance that would intertwine their lives rather than stretch them apart. And in that exchange, a profound epiphany emerged. It became evident that ambition did not need to be a selfish endeavor. Instead, her pursuit of medicine could enrich their relationship by opening new dialogue and shared experiences. In the moments that followed, they began to explore how they could celebrate both their journeys, planning many adventures that allowed them to bond over achievements while gently inspiring each other along the way. As time flowed, Emma absorbed herself in her studies while nurturing her relationship with Mark. They tackled weekends with newfound energy, balancing late-night exam prep with leisurely morning coffees, and revived their date nights in creative ways, cooking together, sharing memories, and dreaming aloud about their future. The essence of their connection transformed. Moments once filled with tension morphed into shared laughter and collaboration, shaping a solid foundation that became their shared haven. Emma recognized that she could chase her dreams without alienating Mark. He thrived through her success, becoming an ally in her journey rather than an obstacle. When Emma received her acceptance letter to medical school, it was a triumph not just for her, but it signified the resilience and partnership they had cultivated together. With tears blurring her vision, she shared the news with Mark, who enveloped her in a joyous embrace, celebrating not just the victory, but everything they had forged in the process. "You did it!" Mark exclaimed. "I always knew you could." In that moment, Emma understood it was not merely an acceptance into medical school, but a culmination of her courage to pursue her identity, her unyielding ambition, and the deliberate effort they both placed in nurturing their bond. As weeks turned into months, her journey in medical school began, accompanied by a newfound sense of identity. Emma emerged not as someone who merely conformed to expectations, but as a determined individual who actively shaped the narrative of her life. And when the inevitable challenges of academia unfolded before her, she faced every one equipped with resilience and the unwavering belief that ambition and love could thrive side by side. Through commitment, they had built the framework of their future. As she strolled through the campus, clad in her stethoscope, she smiled at the realization that her aspirations didn't need to exist in isolation. They flourished, supported by the love she and Mark had cultivated. Emma no longer stood on the precipice of uncertainty. She had taken bold strides into her future, embodying the light she had always sought, a light that was now shared and magnified by the love she cherished.
In that moment of clarity, filled with pride and a sense of belonging, Emma realized she had not only reclaimed her dreams, but also defined them in a way that enmeshed her family, hope, and the harmony of commitment. This was her moment, a testament to her unyielding spirit, her love, and her truly remarkable journey of transformation. Now that you've read this incredible conclusion, you need to subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss out on the next exclusive emotional stories that will inspire you. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Your support makes a difference. Don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this phenomenal conclusion. Comment your reactions and theories about the ending and show your support like the true fan of personal overcoming stories that you are.